Good evening, Julian McBain here, and this is my 20th Saturday vlog. Okay, so just a little housekeeping, as I usually do when I start these. I am finally back on Cyrene, and tomorrow I'm going to start my new Cyrene series for a while. Don't know how long I'll be here. I'll at least be here until migration. You can see the Skylabs up there. Beyond that, I don't know. I keep promising myself I'll come back, and I never did, and here I am, finally. It's been almost a year, so I'm just going to do some hunting of some dusters while I talk. And I'm going to kind of segue from some of the things I've been talking about in McBain moments, which I've really been enjoying doing. I've produced 3 or 4 of them already. At least one for next week is already done, and I've got a topic for another. But I'm trying to synthesize a lot of what I've been kind of watching and reading lately. And the person of the hour that I've come across recently is Dan Pena, who is, I finally figured out how to pronounce it. Dan Pena is the $50 billion man. He lives in a bloody castle in Scotland. And he's a billionaire. And he didn't start a billionaire. He started, in his own words, he started in the barrio. And basically the slums of an American town, which I unfortunately can't remember what city it is. But he started in the barrio and he fought his way up. It's completely self-made. And he took the teachings of Dale Carnegie, who is a legend among businessmen. Come on, thank you. And created QLA, which means Quantum Leap something. And I can't remember what the A stands for. And I should have had it up, but it's not in my notes, so whatever. And it is the most ridiculous, aggressive success program a person can be on. And I mean, if you're willing to pay the money and it's like 20 grand, he'll bring you out to his castle in order to do a training program. And I don't know that I've heard of any one of his students being a failure unless they actually try. But it got me to thinking about success in general, because when you start to look at people who came from nothing and see that they have all of these luxuries, you begin to wonder, is it possible I can do the same thing? And of course, the answer in most cases is yes. I mean, there are those who, because of mental or physical limitations, will be limited in what level of success they can achieve. Frankly speaking, as long as you have the IQ to do something that's productive, there's a good chance that you can make it quite far. And so it got me to thinking of what is success really? How do we define success? And why do we associate luxury with success? And so I was thinking about this, and in fact, Monday's blog on McBainmanor.com is going to be kind of on a related note. So make sure you read that on Monday. But you know, we view success as something that you have to earn, which is true. But I think all too often we view success as something that's acquired by luck, and that's not true. Whoops. Forgot they do that. It's kind of like here in EU. You know, big industries, which with the release of this new share system that I'm not going to get too deep into, that Crystal Palace is doing, I'm pretty sure it's going to eventually quote-unquote go public. I hesitate to use the term, but it's as good a term as any for this case. They have a quote that I'm very fond of, and that's embrace the grind. This game will give you nothing you don't earn. Well, ladies and gentlemen, life won't give you anything you don't earn. This game is just a simulation of life. It's a much more fun simulation of life. I get to go out and hunt dusters. I love hunting dusters. I've rather missed hunting dusters. It sure as hell beats hunting robots. Why? I don't have a fucking clue. Maybe because I like the armor, damn it. But hang on, guys. Had to answer a quick question. And when the lady asks, I always answer, as you all know. As they say, happy wife, happy life. She's not my wife yet, but she will be. Where was I? Oh. This game will not give you anything you don't earn. Embrace the grind. Life will not give you anything you don't earn. And you have to embrace the grind. That being said, I've noticed that the acquisition of wealth, even for those of us who are willing to put in the work, isn't always easy. It really isn't. And in a way, a lot of people complain that the system is rigged against us, and that's not entirely untrue. Hang on. Haha. Sorry, I got more thrill out of that than I technically should have. It's not technically untrue, but there's a reason behind it, and it's not because of any one individual. It's a parietal. What the hell is the term? Parietal diagram, spectrum. Hang on. It's known as the Matthew principle. Oh, I can't. Distribution. That's the word I'm looking for. It's a parietal distribution. And basically what it comes down to is the more you acquire, the more likely you are to acquire more. And this is both positive and negative. The more debt you acquire, the more likely you are going to have to go into debt. Why? Because you're using more money to service it. And on the flip side, the more wealth you acquire, the more likely you are to acquire wealth. And for those of us who had to struggle, and I've been there, I spent the better part of a year, if not more than a year, living on the basement of a moldy trailer. No, not the basement, right. On the living room floor of a moldy trailer. I've lived in a basement too. And I'm not talking basement apartment, I've done that. But we're talking like unfinished basement. I have done that. So it's hard to get out of that mindset. Because for those of us who have had to struggle in life, there are times it feels like money has an expiration. And that is a hard mindset to get out of. And so in a lot of ways, we self-sabotage. We hurt ourselves because we're over our expectations. It's like, how can we be so successful? Something's going to screw up. And I think that's why... Maybe that's why when people win the lottery, they're more likely to lose it all. Because they're so used to living paycheck to paycheck. They're so used to, you know, you finally get some money to put away and then something blows up in your face, right? That's how it always happens. You finally put some money in savings and everything goes well, and then suddenly you lose your job, or someone gets cancer, or the car breaks down. You have to get a new car, and it's a new loan, and now the money you were saving has to go toward it. These are all things that we contend with. And when you're used to living paycheck to paycheck, it's very hard to break out of that mindset. I mean, I'm in the same position. I'm not saying this from a position of having gotten out of it yet. I'm still working on it. Okay? but I'm working on it. And so I kind of wanted to throw that out there. I've been thinking about it a lot and trying to figure out, you know, what would be a strategy for those of us who do struggle or who have struggled to maintain the upward swing. Because once you start the upward swing, it becomes easier and easier and easier to push that upward better or further. But sometimes getting the upward swing to get over that first hump is incredibly hard. Thanks for your patience, guys. Again, it's one of those things where sometimes sometimes it's better to respond rather than to wait. You know, it's interesting. I've been looking for different pieces of life philosophy, and we're not talking Platonism or Aristotelism, like not classic philosophy, but modern philosophy, and it often revolves around business and money and all of that, because, well, let's face it, money is what makes the world go round. But as I think about it, it doesn't matter what you feel your endpoint should be overall, because for some of us, for person A, it could be as much work to get out of bed than for person B to make $1 million, because some of us suffer from depression and others don't. Others are workaholics and they just can't help it. And I would almost be willing to I would almost put money that being a workaholic will eventually be classified as a form of mental illness. It's an addictive behavior, a form of addiction. Less a mental illness, more of a form of addiction. Just like social media will, I think, eventually be considered a form of addiction. Even gaming could be. If it hasn't already, I haven't read the DSM-5. Because it's a form of obsessive behavior. And so it doesn't matter what another person's view of success is. What is your vision? What makes you feel like you're successful? If it means you can go to work every day, you have the energy, you have the spoons to get out of bed and go to work every day, good for you. Because for a lot of us, that's a struggle. 10% of the population hardly has the intelligence to hold a job. Think about that for a second. 1 in 10 people. So I'm pulling these numbers from the lectures of Jordan Peterson. So you know what my source is, full disclosure. But approximately 10% of the population is not smart enough to join the military. Which, to be fair, the military has become far more complex in the last 50 or so years than it was, say, during the World War I. Actually, we're more than 100 years from World War I now. Back when it was pretty simple, run into the other trench and stab the guy with a bayonet. the IQ distribution, IQ itself is known to be a major factor in understanding how successful a person can be. Now, whether they will apply it is another question. You can have an IQ of 145, and if you don't have the drive, you know, barring other factors like depression, mental illness, addictive behavior, other things you have to contend with. If all other things being equal, if you don't have the drive, an IQ of 145 isn't going to help you. You actually have to be willing to get off your ass and do it. And a person with an IQ of 80 can run a successful business if they have the drive. And if they know what their limitations are and hire people to cover for those limitations. Now they're going to have a much harder time of it. You know, instead of working 50 hours a week, they might have to work 80. Or instead of working 80 hours a week, they might have to work 100. But they can still do it. And yes, there is a downward limit to that. I don't know what that is. I don't have that information. It might not even be something that they've studied yet. But in a lot of ways, you can overcome a lack of intelligence with a certain amount of effort to a certain extent. But you can only scrimp on effort so far, even with intelligence. And I think that's what it's going to come down to, is how much... Dan Lok said in one of his TED Talks, and if I remember, I'll try to remember to link it down below or put it in the end screen. He was telling a story about a guy who wanted to be mentored by a rich man. And the question the rich man always asked him was, how hungry are you? And then the rich man punched the kid in the face. They were in a boxing ring. I will have to remember to post the video at the end of this one. It's actually quite a good story. And so this is this is just another step on my journey of figuring out what the hell. Because that's what these vlogs, and this is what McBain Moments is all about. It's motivation, it's understanding things. But I really want to understand the human condition. And I have to do so in a way, right now at least, that doesn't involve formalized school. And maybe that's a good thing. Because honestly, in a lot of ways, Entropia Universe is the perfect laboratory for the human condition. Because it's an almost perfect simulation of life in a science fiction, almost cyberpunk reality. And I firmly believe that. I firmly believe that Entropia Universe is an almost perfect life simulation, right down to the economy. I mean, yeah, there's definite exceptions in the economic factors because you don't have to worry about the basics. Although, I think it would be cool if Calypso, or not Calypso, if MindArc started adding certain important pieces of basic life. Like, maybe you have to, maybe not sleep per se, but maybe to log out you have to pitch a tent. And then they can give everyone like a 10 pec value tent that's easily repaired. And when you log out, you pitch the tent and crawl in, so you have shelter. Make food, make fruit spawn more frequently, but make it so you have to eat it. Whoops. Or if you don't have to eat it per se, make it so that make it so that it provides a buff, or that you can get food for a buff. I think that would be cool. So, kind of lost my train of thought there. in the end, don't let other people's vision of what success is define who you are, I think is what it's going to come down to in this. And I'm going to continue exploring this through, I've got my blog, I've got McBain Moments, and I'm sure that my next vlog will probably be somewhere on the same token unless something else squirrels me away. But it doesn't matter what success is for you, as long as you're continuing to push yourself toward the next level of it. So if you're clinically depressed and getting out of bed is the toughest thing you do in the day, then maybe you're out of bed for an hour on Monday, and then Tuesday you strive for an hour and 15 minutes. And you know what? That's okay. That is okay. Because that's where you're at. Strive for an hour and 15 minutes on Tuesday, and then make it an hour and 20 minutes on Wednesday. And maybe you don't make it every day. Maybe you were aiming for an hour and 20, but you only got out for an hour. So you take a step back. Do an hour 10 on Thursday. You're not always going to succeed, but I've said it before and I'll say it again. Even if you're only successful 10% of the time, it's better than nothing. It is better than zero. Always keep pushing for your next best step. Don't try to strive from 0 to 100. That's not the way to do it. One, you're going to end up hurting yourself more than help. Is there another player out here? There is. Fresh and funky. Sounds like he's... Sounds like I'm sneezing. Sounds like my buddy out there is carrying a BLP weapon, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway. Keep pushing yourself to the next step of your next best thing. It doesn't matter if it's not what, Jim's next best thing is. It doesn't matter if you're quote-unquote keeping up with him or keeping up with her, or, even if your brother or sister is surpassing you in all subjects. None of that matters. Jordan Peterson said it best in one of his rules. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. Because if you're a step further than you were yesterday, you are being successful. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care what any of those motivational speakers say. I don't care what Dan Pena says. I don't care what Dan Locke says. I don't even care what Jordan Peterson says, although he's the one who generally says this. If you are a step further than you were yesterday, then you've been a success today. And if you fail today, who gives a shit? Well, no, that's not entirely true. You should give a shit, but don't beat yourself up over it. Say, okay, yesterday was bad. We're going to try it again. What did I learn from that failure? What can I do to make it better? Because in the end, that's how you're going to make it beyond any point you originally thought you were going to be able to make it. You have the capability to make it to that next step. And if you fall back, then you fall back. You realign. You rally. But never, ever, ever give up. I saw it on one of those Facebook poster things. Mistakes are acceptable. Tears are acceptable. Pain is acceptable. Blood is acceptable. Quitting is not. Never, ever quit. Something goes wrong, you get up the next day and you try again. Even if you have to take a break for a day or two to rally yourself, you get out there and you try again. And it's going to be scary. I read something today. If you're afraid of doing something, you should probably be doing it. And I'm not talking something stupid like jumping off a cliff, unless you got a bungee cord attached to you. Even then, that kind of borders. But if you see something that makes you uncomfortable to try, and it doesn't hurt you, or I should say, it doesn't hurt anyone else. No. For instance, boxing, you can get hurt, but it's worth trying. Robbing someone could hurt you, but it will also hurt the person you're robbing. That's a dumb idea. And don't ever take this as an endorsement of committing a crime. I'll have to find you and beat you. So that's all I got. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please make sure you subscribe. I really appreciate all the support. We did miss our April goal. You know? Remember how I said sometimes you fail? It happens. I failed at the goal. I failed to make 100 subscribers by the end of April. I'm not giving up. I want 100 subscribers. Let's do it by the end of May. I've got 88. I only need 12. That's a really low goal. 12 subscriptions. So if you haven't subscribed to me yet, please help me make that goal. 12 more subscriptions in the month of May. Guys, that's all I got. I really appreciate all of your support. You all have a wonderful night. And welcome back to Cyrene.